Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how to add a zipper to a garment that doesn't have that included into the design of the pattern. A good example of this is something that has a hook and loop tape closure on the back of the garment. Now maybe you've put a lot of time and energy into making something really amazing and you've used great fabrics and all the detail is there, and just in your gut you don't want to use hook and loop tape on the back. It just sort of takes it down a notch. So I think swapping out that closure on the back with, you could do buttons or you could do some kind of button and loop closure, but adding a zipper is a great way to finish it. It has a little bit more professional finish. And it's actually pretty quick to do. So we'll take a look at how to look at your pattern pieces and the included seam allowance that's on those for the closure that it's designed for, and then how to modify that slightly to have enough seam allowance, or how to place the zipper so that you can have a zipper closure on the back of that garment. All right, so let's jump on over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how to make those modifications and how to swap in a zipper closure into your garment. To illustrate how to switch out a hook and loop tape closure on the back of a garment to an invisible zipper, I'm going to use the Selena dress pattern. So I have two versions of this dress sewn in front of us right here. This first one in gray is sewn exactly as the pattern instructs. It has the hook and loop tape closure on the back, and it's sewn following all the instructions as laid out in the pattern. Now this pink version right here has an invisible zipper sewn into the back, and you can see that we've trimmed that out with lace on the edge so that it has a nice finish because it is sewn on top of the lining. There are a few methods that you could use when doing this where you could actually enclose the zipper in the lining. But for this illustration, I'm trying to stick to the pattern as closely as possible and just switch this back closure. So you can see here that we have an invisible zipper closure, but on this one I have left the lining unsewn for a part of it so that I could cover that elastic casing and just hand sew the lining down on the inside. And then if you're to look at an inside view of this dress, you can see that zipper extends all the way down past that waist seam, but it doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the dress. So we've used that lace trim just to accent that detail and cover the edge to give it a little bit more of a finished look because it is not covered by the lining. And then the center back seam is just folded open and pressed under, and it holds that lining inside. So this gives just a clean finish all the way down to the hemline. So to make this type of change on a pattern, you're going to want to check your pattern piece first. This one has a center back seam allowance that is 1/4 inch. Now this is designed to be folded back like that, and then it's also going to overlap 1/4 inch once the Velcro is applied. So that center back really is a 3/8 inch seam allowance, which works great for swapping this with an invisible zipper. Now, if you have a different design that has a 1/4 inch center back seam allowance and it's designed to be folded under or folded back with the seam meeting each other, maybe it has a hook closure at the top or a button and loop closure, and that center back seam doesn't actually overlap, the easiest way to make the adjustment to the pattern piece to extend the seam allowance is to set it down on a piece of paper or graph paper, which is even easier. And I'm just going to tape this down, and then I'm just going to extend this seam allowance, and for this one I'm extending it 1/8 inch. And then I'll just go ahead and cut this out with that little bit of an extension on the back. So here you can see that new back piece of my dress with the extension off the center back. So now I have a 3/8 inch seam allowance at the center back. So I can go ahead and use that to cut out my new bodice. And then I'm going to want to make sure that I go ahead and note that same measurement difference on the skirt portion as well. Now with the Selena dress, I've gone ahead and I've followed the instructions up to the point of connecting the bodice to the skirt, but with one exception. I have this center back portion of the bodice not sewn. So in the original instructions, it has you sew around the whole neckline and then pivot at the corner and sew down center back to the waistline before you turn it right side out. But for this version, because I want to be able to keep my lining separate so that when I finish my dress, I can have this lining cover the seam of my waistband on the inside for a cleaner finish. I'm going to keep this center back open. So then at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take my bodice, following the instructions, right sides together, but I'm going to lift the lining out of the way. And I have my bodice here and I have my skirt here, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to pin these together right along this entire waist seam. I'm just pinning my lining up out of the way just to keep it from getting caught in my seam. So I have this ready to go, and I'm going to sew that, and then we're going to go ahead and install our invisible zipper in the same method that we've already shown you that we use in every dress pattern with an invisible zipper. And then here is just one quick look at the difference of the two designs. So the modification that I've made on the original design, the lining was sewn down and this center back is already finished. So at the end, all I have to do is apply Velcro and I have my closure. But because we're installing a zipper, on this design, you can see here's that difference. So I've left this open so that I can install the zipper and then have my lining fold down after the zipper is sewn on. And it also means that for this particular pattern, the skirt is folded under before you attach the bodice to the skirt, just so that it's equal length, and this lines up with the center back seam at the bottom. So for this modified version, we're not doing that either. We have this extending all the way, it's not turned under, and the bodice is pinned and it matches up the center back. Now, like the original design, we've gone ahead and sewed this a 1/2 inch down and then trimmed away the bodice and the skirt fabric, leaving just the lining fabric. So we're just going to do that, fold this up, and then sew here 3/8 inch up to create that elastic casing, which will now just sit on the inside of the bodice, and then we can have the lining cover that on the inside. And now that we have that sewn, I have my bodice fabric, my lining fabric, and the skirt fabric. So then we're just going to go ahead and install this invisible zipper in the same method that we've already shown you in the other illustration, and we will be able to finish this dress following the instructions in the pattern. All right, guys, well, that wasn't too bad, right? I think that this is a good technique to learn. There's a variety of garments or times when you really want to just kind of elevate your work for that specific piece. So knowing how to do this is a great skill to add to your skill set.